You're a mess.
Maybe I am a mess. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm out of my mind.
No, you're not. Because Stranger Things was, in fact, good. For a time. It might be hard to remember that after sitting through the collection of lore dumps, tedious planning sequences, and stilted dialogue that made up Season 5, but yes, it was good. It was a series that trusted its audience to understand emotion through subtle visual storytelling, to sit in the quiet discomfort of the unknown for entire sequences, entire seasons, without having every answer rattled off in rapid-fire succession. So what happened?
There might be a way to save Derek and find Holly.
This is Holly.
Hold on, I'm a little lost.
Shocking.
We have to stop him, and we have to save Derek.
This is Derek.
What?
Your plan? It sucked.
What?
My plan is faster, bolder, better. As I was heating up my popcorn, I thought about Billy.
Hold on, I'm a little lost.
Shocking.
So we'll need to blindfold him.
Wait. What?
What?
Well, yeah, a lot of things happened, but mostly it was this. Stranger Things began as a show about kids that treated its audience like adults, but it ended as a show about adults that treated its audience like kids. And the real kicker is, in all likelihood, it wasn't even the show's fault, at least not entirely. It was an entity far more villainous and terrifying than that.
Like the Mind Flayer.
No, much worse than that. But before we get to Netflix, we have some important groundwork to set. In the days following the finale, there's been a ton of talk about how the show we all just watched wrap up doesn't feel like the show we started in 2016. And of course, I agree. But instead of ending the conversation there, I want to try and trace a distinct through line from the beginning of the series to the end to show the exact trajectory Stranger Things took from beloved icon of the early streaming revolution to unfortunate victim of the late streaming collapse. So let's go back to where it all started. Back in Season 1, Stranger Things got our feet in the door with nostalgia, monsters, and mystery, but it got us to stay with impeccable character work. Take this pitch-perfect scene from Season 1, for example. Mike is secretly sheltering Eleven in his basement, but when the family leaves for work and school for the day, she's free to roam around the house. For the first time ever, she's seeing what a normal suburban family's home looks and feels like. In these early days, the show did an excellent job of depicting Eleven as a uniquely traumatized child. Her baseline emotional state is marred by fear and loss, and the show deftly depicts that through her stilted vocabulary and stunted social skills.
Who are you in trouble with? Bad.
But in this scene, she's all alone, and she's still scared enough for something as simple as a music box to make her jump with fright. Just through that simple action, without exposition or flashbacks or any dialogue at all, the show reinforces two foundational aspects of Eleven's characterization. Because of her past, she's constantly terrified and tragically uneducated about the most basic staples of life as a normal American child. The music box plays a simple lullaby and Eleven's breath quickens. As the tune plays, she looks increasingly distressed and shaken. And this direction choice is essential and brilliant, not for what the Duffers chose to include, but more for what they didn't. For the audience, and Eleven herself, a lullaby from a music box instantly evokes images of the bond between a mother and her baby. We might not realize it in the moment, and maybe Eleven doesn't either, but the show is quietly imploring us to think about the childhood Eleven never had. Without ham-fisted exposition, or incessantly repeated dialogue, or Eleven whispering, "Mama," under her breath or something, which, make no mistake, is exactly what would have happened if this scene was in Season 5, the show uses brilliant visual storytelling to convey a specific, poignant, and highly affecting feeling. Our young protagonist grieving her stolen childhood. And this feeling is deepened as Eleven moves over to Nancy's bulletin board. Eleven looks confused and wistful as the camera pans over the many milestones of Nancy's young life. There's no need for the show to beat us over the head with what Eleven's feeling, because it's trusting both its actor and its audience to deliver and receive the message wordlessly. And finally, shifting from character mode back to plot mode, the camera lingers on a shot of Nancy and Barb before returning to a knowing look on Eleven's face, leading us to wonder what she might know about the mysterious place Barb was killed in. And just like that, you have a scene that deepens characterization and furthers the narrative in under 90 seconds without a single word being spoken. It's genuinely brilliant, and it's the exact sort of thing Stranger Things seemingly forgot how to do by season 5. But more on that in a bit. Season 2 often gets slapped with a bad rap, and to a degree, it's understandable why that is. At times, you can feel the show straining between expanding the mythology and keeping the magic of what worked so well in the first season alive. But if you go back now, especially with the context of Season 5 in mind, Season 2 has some genuinely excellent stuff and is still very much Stranger Things firing on all cylinders. Because right off the bat, it does something unbelievably impressive. Like genuinely, this is the type of shit they should teach in film school. Right around the 10-minute mark, and within the span of about 7 minutes, the show seamlessly introduces 4 new characters, all of which will go on to become integral to the larger narrative tapestry. First, we got Murray, which is a sleeper pick for the best introduction of the bunch. Murray's red scarebrain theory about who 11 is and what happened to Barb is exactly the type of rationale an investigative outsider would gin up to explain the unexplainable events of Season 1. It tells us exactly who Murray is in witty and economical fashion and allows the show to contrast its own mythology against the late Cold War backdrop of its 1980s setting.
I'm talking a full-on Russian invasion right here in Hawkins.
No notes. Then we have Billy and Max, and the show gives each a redux of an archetypal 80s character intro. Billy gets the pure, unironic 80s teen bad boy intro, and for Max, the tomboy skater girl who the boys are inevitably going to fight over intro. And finally, there's Bob Newby, who for Joyce is a new, nerdy, and lovable love interest, and for Will is a father figure that embodies a path forward to adulthood that doesn't involve losing the cherished yet often maligned qualities that make him different. Altogether, it's a masterclass on how to introduce new characters we're invested in almost instantly. Season 5, on the other hand, does things a bit differently. Where Season 2 introduces new characters for the sake of great characterization, Season 5 only ever introduces them as mechanisms through which we can better understand labyrinthine lore dumps and plot mechanics. Holly Wheeler, who isn't a new character, but let's be honest, is a new character, isn't so much a character as she is an avatar for explaining the rules of Vecna's psychic realm and helping us understand his grand motivation. Dr. K and Lieutenant Akers aren't really characters as much as they're personifications of the military's plan to weaponize 11 and the Upside Down. The only real exception is dipshit Derek, but that has significantly less to do with characterization and much more to do with a hilarious standout performance from Jake Connolly.
He can suck my fat one!
But beyond subpar characterization, one of the most consistent criticisms fans have levied against Season 5 are its almost comically tedious planning and lore dump sequences, and the intellectually insulting formula the season relied on to execute them.
This is Holly.
This is Derek.
This flashlight is the squawk radio tower.
This is Will.
Hold on, I'm a little lost.
Shocking. As soon as they're asleep, we move in, we grab
He
Derek.
goes after Vecna.
We have to stop Vecna. We don't have much time. Tap into it, into Vecna's mind.
I can't reach inside Vecna's mind.
We find Vecna, and we end this once and for all.
Ends him. Ends his army, ends this nightmare.
Hold on, I'm a little lost.
Shocking.
This general scene template has been utilized by Stranger Things for years, but in the past, it was done with much more care and intentionality than in Season 5. For example, look at the quiet elegance and simplicity of Will's Season 2 explanation of what it feels like to have his upside-down flashbacks with the Mind Flayer.
You know on a Viewmaster when it gets like caught between two slides? Yeah, like that. Like one side's our world and the other slide is the Upside Down.
To get his point across, he makes an analogy about a Viewmaster, a stereotypically 80s knickknack that a child would understand. The show doesn't force him to dig through Mike's shit until he finds one and shove it in his face like it would in Season 5. Instead, it simply trusts the audience to comprehend the comparison without having it spelled out to us with a visual aid like we're kindergartners at show and tell.
This is Holly.
This is Derek.
This flashlight is the squawk radio tower.
This is Will.
Hold on, I'm a little lost.
Shocking.
And in Season 5, treating us like kindergartners is just as apparent in the show's themes as it is in its narrative delivery. Back in the earlier seasons, Hawkins was allowed to feel like a dangerous place sometimes, in the Upside Down as well as the Right Side Up. Characters like Lucas deal with racism, both casual and overt.
If you school
then you be Winston.
I can't.
Because you're not black?
I didn't say that.
You thought it.
And something you learn is that there are certain type of people in this world that you stay away from. That kid is one of them.
And Will's potential queerness was a pressure point for both bullies and allies alike.
But he's not in danger. He's dead. So he was probably killed by some other queer.
Say he was queer. Called him a
Is he?
He's missing.
The show was never a direct commentary on either of those things, but it was smart and bold enough to weave the specific ambient bigotry of the suburban 1980s into the wider world of Stranger Things. But by season 5, that realism is almost entirely traded for sappy sanitization. And of course, the primary victim of that sanitization is Will's coming out scene. This is a tricky one because, in my view, there are a lot of things this scene does well. Noah Schnapp's performance feels lived in and affecting, the writing is honest and powerful in spurts, and it's the necessary climax of Will's journey of self-acceptance. But on the flip side, there are just as many flaws as there are upsides. For starters, why is Will coming out to the entire cast of Stranger Things? Why is Vicky there? Why is Murray there? Like, seriously, Will is a 16-year-old kid in 1987 saying things that are still difficult for 30-year-olds in 2026 to say, and fucking Murray, a guy who maybe shared 6 words with Will throughout the entire series, is just standing there smiling like a proud uncle or something. But beyond that, the true issue with this scene is its total refusal to convey any modicum of emotional friction or discomfort from any of these characters. Will is coming out to a room full of 15 people spanning from ages 16 to like 55 in 1987, and not a single person expresses anything but pure, unadulterated acceptance and love. I'm not saying any of them should have hurled a chair at Will and stormed off or something, but a little bit of that social realism the series deployed in the earlier seasons would have certainly made the scene feel more honest and true to life. Even something as simple as someone saying, "I don't understand, but I love you anyways," would have sufficed. The failure to remind viewers that coming out, especially in the late 80s, was difficult just undermines Will's character arc and the bravery it took for him to be honest with himself and his loved ones. And yes, I get that most of Will's confidants are marginalized or outcasted in some way themselves, but still, it's a bit of a stretch. But in any case, we've spent more than enough time reappraising the early days, so let's move on to seasons 3 and 4, where the show made its first major tonal and stylistic sea changes. But first...
So I just want to let everyone know that I just created a Discord server for my Patreon. If you're one of the first 5 people to join, you'll be a founding member, and I'll give you a shout out and a sign off in every video forever. Thank you, and back to the video.
Season 3 marked an unmistakable turning point for Stranger Things. It traded in the dark and foreboding atmospherics of the first 2 seasons for a summery romp into neon-twinged 80s mall culture. Aesthetically, it was lighter than ever, and the narrative followed suit. Hopper went from a bereaved, self-medicating father seeking a reason to live again to a flustered, put-upon sitcom dad moonlighting as a commie-hunting fat Rambo.
He says he likes your courage. You remind him of a fat Rambo.
The rest of the cast followed suit down similar tonal heel turns. Thematically, the show stopped gesturing at late Cold War anti-communism and started building it into its foundations. Or under the foundations, by putting Russians under the foundations of them all. And although the season is still undeniably better constructed and executed than season 5, this is really where some of the cracks began to show. For example, those tedious planning sequences and lore dumps that overran season 5 can be traced directly back to here.
I don't know how we're gonna kill this thing, but if we do...
We kill Olaflade.
And we end this.
We find Vecna, and we end this once and for all.
Ends him. Ends his army, ends this nightmare.
The difference is, Season 3's planning sequences are few and far between, while Season 5 is comprised almost entirely of them. It still felt like the characters were genuinely feeling their way through problems in real time, rather than explaining and re-explaining problems to the audience. Interpersonally, Season 3 also shares some DNA with the contrived character conflicts that plagued Season 5, but again, to a much less egregious extent. In Season 5, whether it's Steve and Jonathan Jonathan and Nancy, Steve and Dustin, or Dustin and everybody else, Stranger Things tells us that a conflict has arisen. We don't see the genesis, which makes the inevitable resolution feel less earned. In the first episode of season 5, the show bashes off-screen conflict over our heads. Jonathan and Nancy's relationship is strained. Dustin and Steve's bromance has soured. Steve and Jonathan are competing for Nancy's affection. The script is telling us about conflict, but it's not showing us why we should care. And even worse, it artificially drags out each conflict to bubble ambiently underneath the plot, patiently waiting for the rare moment when characters stop saying things like,
"We have to stop him, and we have to save Derek,"
for the conflict to climax and eventually resolve. And the most frustrating part is, in almost every case, the resolutions are genuinely compelling. Steve and Dustin's fight about Eddie is a season highlight.
Well, if I'm such a goddamn idiot, how come I'm the one still standing here?
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
As is the moment where Steve's ladder falls through the stairs.
You can't die because I can't deal with it again.
Dustin is finally able to feel like a terrified teenager in Way Over His Head, not just a plot device to help the gang work through problems. Steve is finally able to feel like a caring role model, not just a plot device for love triangles and lore dumps.
Hold on, I'm a little lost.
Shocking.
Jonathan and Nancy's unproposal scene might be the best written dialogue exchange in the entire season.
What we've been through.
You mean our shared trauma?
It's like this thing that ties us together forever. It made me feel safe, but also
It can be suffocating.
It relitigates Murray's shaky season 2 assertion that shared trauma is what really breeds true love.
The real shit. Shared trauma.
In one fell swoop, the show beautifully concludes a 5-season love story, quietly retcons one of its most tone-deaf bits of messaging, and humanizes 2 fan-favorite characters. In both cases, the road to getting there wasn't pretty, but the destination made the journey basically worth the ride. You see what you can accomplish when you take a few goddamn minutes away from stopping Vecna and saving Derek?
We have to stop him, and we have to save Derek.
In season 3, those calculated conflicts are there as well, particularly between Jonathan and Nancy, Mike and Eleven, and Joyce and Hopper. But we at least get to see how and why they started, making it all the more rewarding when they're finally resolved. Ultimately, season 3 is a big tonal shift with some pretty glaring issues, but crucially, the deviations still feel born out of creative choices, not corporate mandates. Mandates we'll get to a bit later. But before that, we have to touch on season 4, which is bar none the series' most ambitious installment. By the time season 4 rolled around, Stranger Things was a bona fide cultural phenomenon, and finally, the series decided to expand its narrative scope to match the breadth of its global fan base. In many ways, season 4 was a tonal return to form for the franchise. Out were the color pop aesthetics of season 3, and in was the dark, brooding tension of seasons 1 and 2. Tonally, it's a direct continuation, but where the first 2 seasons thrive on restraint, the 4th explodes through maximalism. The story becomes globalized as we follow Hopper's imprisonment in Russia and the Byers family's relocation to California, of course, alongside the typical Hawkins-based storyline. And as the scale widens, so too does the mythology. For the first time ever, the series introduces an intelligent, humanoid villain in Vecna, lending the story a much-needed dose of intentionality after years of relying on unspeaking cosmic threats like the Demogorgon and the Mind Flayer. Season 4 is undeniably impressive. It proved the show could change and grow without losing the heart of what made it so special in the first place. But even if ballooning the scope and mythology to unprecedented proportions generally worked for the penultimate season, it wrote some checks that the final season was clearly unable to cash. For the first 3 seasons, the story took place in 2-dimensional planes, the upside down and the right side up. But season 4 fractured the upside down from one easily digestible sci-fi setting into 3, each with its own set of intricate narrative rules: the regular upside down, the abyss, and Vecna's psychic mind palace. When those settings were first introduced, they were novel and exciting. They presented brand new mysteries the audience felt obliged to try and solve. But by the time we got to season 5 and the focus shifted from mystery to payoff, the weight of all the new mythology forced the narrative to bog itself down with heavy-handed exposition. What initially felt like intriguing new lore in season 4 eventually became an albatross around the show's neck in season 5. It's very difficult to write an engaging, momentous conclusion when you're too busy trying to keep your sprawling mythology from becoming completely incomprehensible. And that's the true issue with season 4. Not that it's bad, not that it's messy, it was just simply unsustainable. Interesting lore and mythology were always part of the equation that made Stranger Things a cultural touchstone, but that's not what made anybody fall in love with it. Early on, the Upside Down was a garnish. By season 4, it became the main course. And by season 5, it became an entire fucking buffet. And not a particularly good one. But throughout this whole video, I've been hinting at a larger force at play here that actually killed Stranger Things. Unruly creative decisions may have played a part in making the series trickier to wrap up, but they're not what killed it. Netflix did. If you're at all tuned in to the media analysis space online, which I'm assuming you are if you made it this far into the video, you've probably heard about Netflix's second screen policy. But in the event you haven't, I'll explain it briefly. Over the past few years, a slew of Netflix screenwriters have spoken out about Netflix's policy of purposefully dumbing down and repeating dialogue to enable distracted viewers to understand the story while scrolling on their phones or doing other things. The thinking goes, if the show is simple enough to follow with divided attention, the viewer will feel safe in keeping it on in the background as they scroll TikTok or do chores, thus increasing overall watch time and keeping subscribers on Netflix instead of competing streaming services. Screenwriters will literally send a draft to Netflix execs and get back notes that say, "Not second screen enough." If this sounds horrific and dystopian and fucking insane to you, that's good, because it is. And while there's no hard evidence that the Duffers & Co. were told to do second screen passes on their Stranger Things scripts, the proof is kind of in the pudding.
Soon as they're asleep, we move in, we grab Derek.
He goes after Vecna.
We have to stop Vecna. We don't have much time. We have to stop him. And we have to save Derek.
And in the case of Stranger Things, of course this second screen nonsense is infuriating. Due to calculated corporate mandates, we were robbed of a genuinely satisfying and fitting conclusion to one of the 21st century's most beloved television series. But more than angering, it's really just depressing. Netflix, the biggest streamer in the world who is a handful of regulatory checks away from owning one of the most respected major film studios in Hollywood history, has successfully turned the art of long-form scripted television writing into, essentially, YouTube, where art goes to die, retention is king, and every creator has daily online gladiator matches to win bigger slices of the viewing public's increasingly fractured attention. Speaking as a YouTuber myself, the thought of long-form television slowly morphing into YouTube is, in a word, reprehensible. If they get a chance to do it to film as well, which they very well might, it's even more of a tragedy. I wish I could make a video with a thesis that positions the downfall of Stranger Things as a cautionary tale, a one-off artistic nosedive that can easily be avoided in the future with a creative team that thinks a little deeper or tries a little harder. But the sad truth is, in all likelihood, this downfall is much less of a cautionary tale than it is an omen. An omen that signals the inevitable colonization of art by the unstoppable corporate juggernauts who rule the attention economy. The sort of faceless suits who can sleep soundly knowing they hacked away at an iconic story until it became little more than high-retention background noise. So yes, the final season of Stranger Things was not good, but given the context it came from, it's much less of a perpetrator than it is a victim. And unfortunately, it's far from the first and almost certainly will not be the last. So anyways, sorry to end on such a downer note, but this is kind of a downer topic, so not much to be done about that. Thanks so much to everyone who made it this far. Major shout out to my founding Patreon members, Tony and Connor. Like and subscribe for more content like this. Patreon and other links down in the description, and I'll catch y'all soon.